Now, I just want to comment too as well on this situation that I was personally involved in with Palantir's abuses, because this was quite a long time ago. This was 2011, 2012, I believe. But I do think it sheds a lot of light into what Palantir is, what it was even back then, when it still had a fairly good reputation. And the story that article referenced involving me happened because of this. There were a lot of rumors that WikiLeaks was on the verge of releasing a huge and incriminating file about the Bank of America. Obviously one of America's largest banks, I think maybe now its largest bank, commercial bank. And the Bank of America was understandably quite alarmed by what was rumored to be an imminent, extremely incriminating release of secret Bank of America files of the kind that WikiLeaks back then was doing regularly, not just to governments, but to other corporations. And in response, Bank of America hired several firms to help it strategize about what it should do in response to WikiLeaks' release of it. And one of the groups that it hired to help it strategize was Palantir. And a group of hackers were able to hack a company that was also hired called HB Gary, and the documents that were created by Palantir to help Bank of America against this WikiLeaks release were discovered and were disclosed. And one of the documents that were created with Palantir's cooperation was dated September 3rd, 2010, and this is part of the strategy to help Bank of America against WikiLeaks. Here's part of what they said, quote, "One other thing, I think we need to highlight people like Glenn Greenwald. Greenwald was critical in the Amazon to OH transition and helped WikiLeaks provide access to information during the transition. It is this level of support that we need to attack. These are established professionals that have a liberal bent. But ultimately, most of them, if pushed, will choose professional preservation over cause." This is what they were saying that they needed to exploit, that WikiLeaks' primary defenders, and I was the person they listed as one of the most, influential defenders of WikiLeaks, and therefore needed to be targeted. They were saying these are professionals that have a liberal bent, but ultimately most of them, if pushed, will choose professional preservation over cause, much as the mentality of most business professionals. Without the support of people like Glenn, WikiLeaks would fold. So think about that, what they were actually saying there. They were saying that they wanted to put people who are critical to the defense of WikiLeaks, the public defense of WikiLeaks, in a choice where either you could choose two things. You could choose to continue to pursue the cause you believed in, which was defending WikiLeaks, or you could choose preservation of your professional reputation and professional standing, but you couldn't choose both. They wanted to put people like me in that position, saying, if you want to keep defending WikiLeaks, we're going to destroy your professional reputation. We're going to find things about you. We're going to leak things about you. In case any of you think this is sort of the stuff that is the byproduct of paranoia or science fiction scripts about how these kind of people work, here it is in black and white. I have to admit, this was 2010, just about 5 years after I began writing about politics. I was a little bit surprised, I will admit, by how sinister this is, kind of expressed in corporatist jargon. But it shows what Palantir is. They were saying, we'll either force him to stop defending WikiLeaks or we'll destroy his career and his professional reputation by finding out things about him, by leaking things, by launching coordinated campaigns. That was their strategy for discrediting WikiLeaks, for weakening WikiLeaks in defense of and in service to their corporate client that had hired them, which is the Bank of America. And then here's a reply from a Palantir person in the reply that says, quote, "I like the strengths and weaknesses highlights. Going to add those in. I'll also add a, quote, spotlight on Glenn Greenwald too." Signed, Matthew Steckman, Palantir's technology forward deployed engineer. Now, this did become public, And at the time, Palantir was trying to build this branding of its new corporation, relatively new corporation still, as sort of the, yes, we are contractors to the intelligence agencies. Yes, we work with the CIA and we serve the NSA and the Pentagon. But we're the new version of military and intelligence contractors. We're the ones who care about civil liberties. And they were trying to recruit the top students from places like Stanford and Harvard and the University of Chicago by pitching themselves as, yes, we work with these agencies you think are bad, but we're the kind who do it but insist on civil liberties protections. And once that document got revealed, and at the time I was very much associated with civil liberties and probably the left, it was very embarrassing to them. It was very contradictory to the image they had spent a lot of time building. And so yes, Alex Karp at the time did call me personally and said, we deeply apologize for what this document was planning on. It never got to the execution stage. This is contrary to our values. We hope you'll accept our apology. They made the apology public because that was the whole point of it. But I remember, of course, obviously back then thinking Palantir seems like a very sinister company. How would I not think that? How would anyone not think that when you read that document? And they've only gotten more and more and more embedded into the intelligence apparatus, into the national security state, into the deep state, to the point where, as a result of these executive orders and this attempt to make Palantir essentially omnipresent in our government, they have reached the peak of their power, the kind of fulfillment of that total information awareness program that even back in 2002 was considered too extreme, even though it was just a few months after 9/11.